Welcome to Glow for Hope, sparking conversation on mental health, where we spark honest conversations about mental health, mental wellness, and hope. Every episode, we're breaking down barriers, sharing real stories, and opening up to dialogue about mental health. Because the first step toward change is simply starting the conversation. Whether you're here to listen, learn, or find connection in your own journey, you're in the right place. Let's talk about it. Let's spark change. This is Glow for Hope. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Glow for Hope, sparking conversation on mental health. I am joined today with my lovely co-host for an odd interview. Not an odd interview, but we don't usually get together anymore.
Yeah,
So
it's here and there. It's always a great time though when we can get together.
absolutely. Now that we've got some technology figured out today, our guest today knows all about our technology issues.
Facts.
Uh, so today we're joined by our friend Chris Allard, founder and executive director of the 10th Man Foundation. Chris created the foundation after losing his brother John to suicide in 2018. John was an assistant state's prosecutor in St. Clair County, and his loss inspired Chris to turn pain into purpose, advocating for first responders and public safety professionals who face incredible emotional strain. Through the 10th Man Foundation, Chris provides what he calls an alternative voice for those struggling in silence, a safe space for conversation, connection, and hope. He also serves with the St. Clair County Suicide Prevention Alliance and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, continuing to honor his brother's life through action and awareness. Chris has also been a great supporter of Glow for Hope since the beginning, having kicked off our events, sharing his story. So welcome, Chris. We're glad you agreed to come back and join us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Kelly and Delisa. Yeah,
Thank
we had
you.
a little issue last time, but I think we're all good now.
I don't know that we've progressed a whole lot more on our technology, but we brought him in person this time, so it could go right.
We'll see how it goes.
That's right. It's always a good opportunity to have you talk to you.
It's so good to just see people's faces and have conversation is
Yeah, no, this
so
is
much
great. This is a
better.
great setup. I'm glad you guys are doing this.
Great, thanks. Okay, so why don't we start with your story and what led you to the creation of the 10th Man?
Yeah, sure. Anytime I'm in front of a group, I always kind of tell the same story because I think there's elements of the story that everybody can kind of pick up on. There's something that they can say, yep, that's the exact same thing that I experienced. So, my journey through all this started back in 2018, September 2018. I was actually living in Austin, Texas at the time, and back here in my hometown of Belleville, Illinois, my mom was going through some cancer treatments, and it was pretty obvious that things were not going in the direction that we had hoped. So I made the decision to go ahead and pack up my life and move back to Belleville, and not just in Belleville, but actually in the house that I grew up in with my mom and dad and my brother. So it was kind of a unique situation. And so I arrived back in Belleville around September 1st of 2018. And my furniture had just arrived a couple days before, so I had stuff scattered all over. And right about noon, my brother walks through my front door, and I said, "Hey, you home for lunch?" And he said something along the lines of just needing to, get out of the office and get some fresh air, clear his head. So he sat across from me for, no less than 45 minutes. We were just talking about much of nothing. It was just a normal conversation. In fact, at one point, he got up and helped me with the TV, and we were watching a Cardinals game. And then at one point he did get up and he walked to the other side of the house where my mom was and gave her a hug and kiss and said he loved her and came back through my side and said he was going to go for a walk and get some fresh air. So I didn't think much about it. A little while later, I needed to run some errands. So I get up and I go out to my car and his car is still in the driveway. And at first I thought that was a little odd. But then I remembered that the walk he used to take when he lived there was about a 30-minute walk. So maybe he was just taking his time. So I get in the car and go run my errands. And so now I'm coming out of the grocery store and my phone rings and it's my mom. And, I answer it and she says, hey, the sheriff's here looking for John. And at first I kind of chuckled. I went, well, what did he do? And then she said something about a suicide watch. And of course, that's the moment, my heart starts beating and I hop in the car and hightail it home. And we've got some property, we've got about 16 acres around us. And I pull into the driveway and there's one sheriff's deputy walking around. And so I approached him and he asked me a few questions about the property. And then, jump forward about an hour or more in the day, and now I'm surrounded by no less than 12 officers from the St. Clair County Sheriff Department, Belleville Police, and the Illinois State Police. And that's when one of the officers approached me and broke the news that my brother had taken his own life. So I asked a few questions and asked how he did it and all those things. And then I knew I had a job to do. There was my mom, standing about 50 feet away. I knew I had to inform her. My dad was still working at the time, and so I knew that I had to get him home safely and break the news to him. My brother had gotten remarried just 5 months before, and so I had to locate his wife and inform her. And then my brother's kids were grown, or one was in college, and still I needed to inform all of them. So I got through all that, and then that's when I knew that I needed to do more. So my brother had actually left me a note, and we decided, I guess one part I left out, we decided to get out in front of it. My brother had left a note just talking about the depression he was experiencing. We had no idea. We didn't know the signs, and looking back, we didn't know the signs to look for. So, but he had a request. He wanted me to help raise the awareness around the signs of depression, and so we decided to go ahead and put that out in front. We put that in a social media post of what had happened. We actually put it in his obituary of what happened. And because of that, there were so many people that came out of the woodwork and came to us and actually thanked me to say, thank you for telling the story, the truth, because I've got a story as well. Either they suffered from depression or they lost a loved one to suicide, but they didn't come out. They kind of buried it because of the stigma. So we knew that we were onto something. So we needed to go forward and create some sort of platform to get the word out there that this does happen. We need to chip away at the stigma and help people in a real way. So jump forward to get a little bit in time, and as you said in the intro, my brother was a assistant state's prosecutor for about 20 years for St. Clair County, and part of that time he worked for Brendan Kelly, who at that time was the state's prosecutor and is now our director of Illinois State Police. So I met with Brendan just to understand a little bit more about my brother's background and what role perhaps that job had played in his mindset. And that's when Brendan said, of course that job was demanding. My brother was a murder and heinous crime expert, so we knew he saw a lot of things that the normal human doesn't see. And but he called him the 10th man, and I didn't know what that term meant at the time. And so what Brendan said was when the legal team had consensus that they were going to try a case a particular way, they would look at John and say, hey, 10th man, poke holes in our case and in our theory and give us a different way to look at this. So the definition is, devil's advocate or alternative voice. And that's when the light bulb went off in my head and said, that's exactly what my brother John needed in his personal life, was a 10th man to tell him that the path he was going down towards suicide was not the right path. And so that's how we launched the 10th Man, and now we've been at it for almost 7 years now. And because of that, the work that we do, and I can get a little bit more specific into that, but because of that work, I started to partner up with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and eventually was nominated and elected to their board of directors as well. So, I get to tackle this extremely important topic from a couple of different angles, and we do different things. The organizations do different things, and that way I can sort of kind of throw a much broader net over the challenges here.
Right. So I've heard the story multiple times, and it still just gets me and gives me chills. And thank you for what you do. And I, my take on the obituaries. I wish they all would say it, because it just leaves people wondering, and you could just nip it in the bud and get people talking, and so.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Sometimes you can get a clue, depending on in lieu of flowers, somebody might, say, donate to AFSP or something like that. But usually that's not even the case. It's and again, I understand why. It is a tough topic, and as open as we have been, it was still a tough decision to make, because I know that there's other impacts. Other people that my brother knew would be impacted by that story as well. So
You know, Chris, one of the things that came to my mind when you were telling your story was that the office had called your mom and said something about a suicide watch. So, I assume, your family didn't know anything about it at the time. And I understand there's things at work, they have to have certain confidentiality and stuff like that. But how have you been able to maybe make some changes there to to help folks to kind of know, like, was there maybe EAP implemented or something that would help before it got to that point? And how did you all kind of feel knowing, okay, well, you all were concerned enough that there was a suicide watch, but we didn't know? How did you walk through all of that? Because I'm sure there were multiple emotions going on.
Yeah, how did they know to even give that warning out?
yeah, so there's a lot to that. So in my story that I told, I talked about my brother sitting across from me for 45 minutes or so talking about much of nothing. One thing I do recall was he was on his phone. He was texting away, and that was a normal thing. He was one of those people that was just always on his phone texting. And what it turned out to be, I think, was he had some emails and some texts sort of queued up that then he was kind of doing these mass texts. So one of the recipients of that text, and my brother was, I think, just basically he was giving enough information about what he was going to do that at least one of those individuals who received a text notified the authorities of what was going to happen, because again, because of my brother's job, he was an extension of law enforcement, so
Right.
he's in that criminal justice world. So they knew him, and that's when they basically rushed over to the house and tried to understand what was going to happen. Now, I think the other part of that question is one of the focuses that I have had through both the 10th Man and AFSP is doing different trainings with law enforcement. So through AFSP in particular, they have a program called Talk Saves Lives, and I've done multiple trainings for the Illinois State Police. Again, thanks to Director Brendan Kelly, and it's to help individuals understand the signs to look for, whether it's in themselves, their coworkers, or others, and then what to do about with those things. So I think that's part of it. I think how we've taken that situation and not just try to help our own family and our own friends, but make a bigger impact into other organizations as well.
I think that's a beautiful thing too, because in our last podcast we were talking about the post traumatic incidents with first responders
Mm-hmm.
and how they feel. So what you all are doing kind of goes right in with that, because yeah, we're dealing with a population of folks that sees a lot of stuff that the rest of us don't have to see, and a lot of times they have to just put it back because there's the next call, there's the next thing. You don't have time to process that, and that can take a toll.
Yeah, I think at the episode with Kenneth Bader, he called it post traumatic. It was PTSI.
Incident.
That's what I wanted to
Yeah.
say it was. Yeah, PTSI, not PTSD.
Yeah.
And because it's something you really can kind of move on and move past, but it's hell in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And in every one of these trainings that I've done, and there's been other organizations outside of the Illinois State Police, but I always get really positive feedback that somebody has taken something away from that discussion or from that class or course that they did not know before. And if they can take one piece of information away and impact one life, then it's all been worth it for sure.
So let's dive a little deeper into that. And what is recognizing the warning signs, and how do you identify when someone needs help?
Yeah, and some of it is some of it is very overt is what I say, and some of it not so much. So sometimes if an individual is being very overt about it, they might be using very direct language, like I am depressed, I am suicidal, I am thinking of killing myself, all those kinds of things. So obviously those are obvious signs, and it's okay then to interject and try to get that person to the resources, immediate resources, because if they are that overt about it, then they are getting either at or very, very close to their moment of crisis, as we call it.
So is that a 911 call or a
Yeah.
988 call?
That it could be either one, I guess. so 988 is a great resource, but they are not law enforcement. So if there is an immediate need where somebody needs to interject right away, 911 is still a very good call to make. And that comes with some challenge as well. But I will say, most of the law enforcement organizations that I have come across, they have done such a great job of now training individuals on how to intervene with those situations, with those individuals, those officers who really know how to handle that situation. Not with just a strong arm, as an example.
Yeah, there's still not enough of them that have had the crisis intervention training, but
That's
it's a
exactly
start.
right. Yeah, that's exactly right. We're much further along than we were probably 4 or 5 years ago. But there is so much more to do for sure. Um,
Well, how would you have kind of, the tough conversations with someone, who is struggling, and maybe say someone that's giving you a little pushback? Can you kind of walk us through how you would just talk to somebody?
Yeah, and so kind of go into the other situation. So those that maybe are not quite as overt, but you can start to recognize signs. And again, any of these trains, we try to train some people to just recognize that there's been a change in somebody. And again, I always preface all these things by saying I am not a mental health professional.
Nor are we, but
Yeah,
we've
Right.
lived
yeah.
a lot of experience.
Yes,
Right.
yeah,
So
yeah. We've got some real world experience, and that goes a long way. But when you see different changes in behavior, maybe somebody was very outgoing, and now suddenly they're being more reclusive. Their language has changed. They're being a little bit more abusive or much more abusive. Um, they were very involved in their communities or their family events and things like that, and now they're not. So some of those kinds of things are what starts to percolate to the top for me, where something is different. Their language is different, their behavior is different, and so I think to the question is, what I've learned now is it's okay to ask that question. Hey, are you okay? And if it's a little more obvious than that, it's okay to say, are you thinking of suicide? There's all kinds of evidence that shows by broaching that subject, you're not putting the idea of suicide in somebody's head. In fact, it's just the opposite. If they are thinking of suicide and you say those words, it actually could be diffusing a situation that's approaching that. Again, we use that term, that moment of crisis. And by that, what I mean is, most suicides happen there are multiple things happening at the same time. So most suicides, there is some sort of mental health issue going on. It could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be something else. And then when someone has that or is experiencing that, and then there's some moment of crisis, some life crisis that for the rest of us might seem something that we can get past. It might be insurmountable in their mind, and they start to get that tunnel vision. And when those things start to intersect and they're in that tunnel vision mode, that's kind of what we refer to as that moment of crisis. So having that conversation, being very very direct about that conversation, and if they come forward and say, yeah, I am struggling, then okay, now we can go to that next step and say, let's find the resources to help you depending on what's going on. To your other question, if they start to push back, we do say don't push it too much. You don't want to agitate the person. But at that point, then, if you find yourself, well, now I don't know exactly what to do, that's when you yourself, you can call 988 or some other resources. You don't have to be the one that is experiencing the moment of crisis. You can be calling on behalf of somebody else, say, hey, here's the situation. What can I do? And they are very well trained in helping you through that situation.
Now, that's very important, and I'm glad that you brought that up, that you can actually call 988 and ask, hey, what should I do? Because maybe the person is struggling, and at that point, they just don't know. Because, sometimes it's a hair trigger decision. And maybe at that time you ask them, okay, no, I'm fine, whatever. And then something happens that just tips. So it is really important to be able to have the words to help them. And maybe with you mentioning it, like you said, oh, they know that it's on your radar. So because sometimes this is in secrecy. I say, speaking of just some things that have happened in my family with some of my siblings that had gone through some mental health struggles and tried to take their own lives. It was very much secret. But when it was called out, when we later learned the words and had gone through the therapy to know what to say, when we could see, hey, I recognize this. I think this is where you're headed. It's a turnaround. And a lot of times, yeah, they'll admit, okay, yeah, I am really struggling. And then say, okay, then we have the discussion of, okay, let's try to get the help. You know, who do we want to call? Do we need to go to an intake, which sometimes that's the route we would get in the car and go for an intake.
Yep, absolutely. And one of the things you said, I keep going back to that moment of crisis. So there might be somebody who's experienced depression their entire lives, and they might even have these moments where they get closer and closer to a moment of crisis, and something diffuses that. But that point that you just made, if somebody is getting closer and closer to that point of kind of that where they're about to act on something. Something that can just diffuse that, a simple conversation, a simple comment, and then that moment of crisis goes away. Now, you got to realize there might be another one, somewhere shortly down the path here, but diffusing that is the critical part, and it's simply asking, hey, yeah, are you okay? Can do that. There's a great organization. It's a collaboration. There's something called Seize the Awkward. SeizeTheAwkward.org. It's a collaboration between, I think, the Ad Council, AFSP, the JED Foundation, which focuses on teen mental health and suicide prevention. And it's these series of videos that have someone in, and most of them are these like TikTok influencers who I don't know any of them, I have to admit, showing my age here, I guess. But they're showing them on camera, and they're kind of struggling with the words to basically ask somebody, "Are you okay?" So that it goes through one person after the other on video, and then finally it circles back to those same individuals, and they just say, "Hey, I noticed something's different. Are you okay?" And it's really resonated with, I think, especially the younger generations, youth and teens, because they recognize these people. And if they know that those people would say, hey, are you okay? And it's okay to talk about this. There's evidence that shows that it's really made a big difference in opening up that conversation and just chipping away at that stigma.
I really like to Seize the Awkward. We give out a lot of those postcards. The new sticker series that they came out with too. And sometimes the diffuser is even as simple as just a text and at the right time. So I've learned a long time ago, when somebody comes to mind, you reach out within the first 24 hours of that, and it has proven beneficial. So take action on that stuff. Somebody comes to mind, you get an odd feeling about something, shoot them a text, give them a call. Hey, don't do it, whatever, something.
You're absolutely right. I won't give the names, but there's an organization that we've worked with a few times, and that's how the story started. It was an individual with a military background. He was suffering from PTSD. He was sitting in a parking lot, and he was locked and loaded. And at that moment, it's now his wife. It was his girlfriend at the time, called at the right moment, and it diffused the situation. And now they're doing great things in this same topic that we're talking about. So instead of him taking his own life, they are now saving lives. And it's just goes to that point. It was literally, I mean, seconds from going a different direction. So it's a great success story that they have.
And that's why it's so important to talk about it, because you hear all of these personal stories of survival and the hope, and then what comes out of it, how they pay that forward and start speaking about their experience, and it just goes, it's the positive ripple effect. And I know that through your work you've experienced a lot of that. Can you just tell a little, maybe another or story, or how any other organizations that have come about as you've done your work?
I'm sorry, ask it again. Other organizations that,
Or maybe other maybe organizations within, or groups within, say, the law enforcement community, do they have little meetups or things that are focused on mental health now that your organization has gone and spread awareness, just kind of, the branches of the tree spreading out?
Gotcha. Now I understand. I think there's two types of organizations that I think come to mind. There's the organizations that are specifically focused on suicide prevention. My organization, your organization. There's other organizations like that we operate with. But if I understand the question, when we start reaching out to and when other organizations, whether it's government organizations, corporations, et cetera, when they start to learn about the work that we're doing, then they have started to create some programs within their organizations to bring to bring us in to speak to their employees about again, everything we just talked about, the
Yeah.
signs of depression to look for. So I think that's where we've seen the most I guess organic growth is within organizations, understanding that there is a problem. Our coworkers, our other people that are involved in our organization, we need to do a better job of understanding the signs of depression and how to protect our employees. Now there's a fine line there. How much an employer can the kind of conversations they can have with an employee. But if I'd set that aside for a second, there's a lot of organizations that have started to create these kind of programs. I will say where it's the slowest. So I've talked about some of the law enforcement organizations that have really come forward and put these great programs together. There are some other organizations like that. I would say the corporate world is the slowest so far to kind of get on board, and maybe it's because of some of the things I said. They're a little bit worried about some of the legalities of it. But I will say one industry that has been really taken a lead in this is the construction industry. So if you look at all the different industries and rank them by the number and the rate of suicides, the number one industry in year after year now has been the construction industry,
Wow.
and construction in the broad sense. So it's it's infrastructure, it's buildings, it's housing, it's all those kinds of things. And if you think about it, there's a couple factors there. One, it's physical work that sometimes comes with injuries and chronic pain and things like that, which is one of the leading factors for suicide. There's other factors. It is a male-dominated industry, and statistics show that males die from suicide at 4 times the rate of women. And there's probably some other factors in there as well. It's a lot of times it can be seasonal work. So what are they doing in the downtime? Does alcohol become a problem? Do they not manage their finances properly? All those kinds of things. But so there's multiple reasons why that construction industry is experiencing the rates that they are when it comes to suicide. But they have taken the lead. They have partnered up with AFSP is one of them, and actually put programs together specifically to address, and it's along the lines of the Talk Saves Lives, specifically to address construction workers on everything we just talked about, the signs to look for, and not just in your coworkers, but in yourself as well. Yeah. And they'll do, like in the corporate world, what we call tailgate meetings. So we can go on site and address whether it's five employees or 100 employees, and talk to them on site about these these different signs, so that they're not necessarily having to come into a corporate office. So my hope is that there are other industries that follow suit from what the construction industry is doing.
Yeah, I can say it's really unfortunate that the corporate world seems to haven't have gotten better. I was in corporate America for about 20 years, and they would basically just go in and say, okay, well, you have your employee assistant plan, or EAP, if you heard me mention that earlier, and these are the benefits that you get with it, and there you go. You're responsible for reading your benefits package, and that's that. There was not a step beyond that, and that's unfortunate, because for some folks, they're hesitant to use the EAP because they really want to know, okay, is this truly confidential? You give me 3 or 5 sessions through the EAP. How do I know for sure that, you're not going to say something to my employer? So corporate America, if you're listening, you all really have to get on that. And because, this is happening everywhere, and we want people to live healthy lives. So you all have got to do a better job. Get better.
Yeah. Yeah, now I will say, so before all of us are flooded with emails and phone calls. I will say one thing that corporate world has done a good job is, when you look at those benefits programs, they almost all of them have expanded, not just from physical health care, but include the mental health care piece as well. So that's been a huge step. But I think the awareness of it within the organization that those are available, and then even beyond that, how to watch out for yourself and your coworkers. That's the part that I think is definitely still missing, though.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. That would really be really cool if people just felt, even you have your posters and your pamphlets and stuff that we would have up in the office. Add some that focus on mental health. That would be a really great thing instead of just, your normal work stuff, your work punch
Yep.
in and all that. So, okay, corporate America will allow of you.
So let's talk a little bit about you know the impact of loss that we've all experienced it. How do you support those that are left behind?
Yeah, I mean it's a broad question. Everybody deals with these kinds of situations in a different way, and not to go into the whole cycles of grief and things like that, but that is real, and everybody goes through a phase and a journey, as I call it, and people can find themselves in different parts of the journey. So whenever there's a few different events that I do annually. One is I MC an event at the Our Lady of the Snows Shrine every year. It's a candlelight vigil, and so everybody who comes there, their lives have been touched by loss of suicide in some way, and we have people come up, and there's a few people that tell their stories, and there's it's a pretty somber event. There's a lot of tears, but people can look around and see that there's others that are going through the same thing. There's much larger events like the AFSP Out of the Darkness Walk, and those walks happen all across the country. And there's multiple things that happen during those walks, but really one of the main purposes is for people to there's the phrase "you are not alone," for people to look around, and if there's 400 people or 6,000 people at these walks, everybody there, their life has been touched in some way by suicide. And if you're there for the first time, you don't know what to do, you can probably just walk 2 feet away and ask somebody like, tell me your story. Where are you in this journey? And, how do you think I'm going to get there? So a lot of it is just, I guess what you would call maybe peer-to-peer support, finding others that have gone through something that you have. Yeah, and then there's of course there's some really great, they're more formal programs. I always here locally I always recommend an organization called HeartLinks. They've got a great grief program that helps people, and I actually went there myself. I always tell the story. My mom and I were a lot alike. We compartmentalize everything, and we'll deal with it later. And my dad and my brother are the same. They wear their emotions on their sleeves. And so when I finally realized that I think my one of my compartments isn't opening up a little bit, so I went to went to Art Links, and it was a great session, and it really helped me. So there's a variety of things out there to help somebody with that. With what they're struggling with, and try to understand how can I progress along that journey. And you might find yourself you're down that journey, and guess what, something happens and you take a few steps back. It's going to happen. But find a great support group, whether it's informal, just others that you know of or you hear of that have gone through something similar, whether it's an event like the Out of the Darkness Walk, or if it's something that's more formal like a grief counseling session. There's multiple things out there, and again, if you don't know where those are, the AFSP.org website has some information. Do a little bit of a plug here. We've got some information on the 10thman.org as well to help you find those resources.
So when you went to form the 10th Man, how did you know that you were healed enough to start this organization and start helping others? Because you didn't just have to deal with the loss of your brother. You had been given the directive in his letter to go and help. So how did you get to where you are today, and how long did that take? I mean, that's a lot.
I don't think it took long at all. Again, I think that's it, every individual is different. So from the very beginning, I just knew that this is something I had to do. Now it took some time. It probably took us about 9 months to really formalize the 10th man and understand what we were trying to do and get a mission statement together. But as far as when you talk about the healing, I don't. I'm not saying that I didn't need to heal. My gosh, I loved my brother. He's my best friend. I was saddened, heartbroken even. But as far as the healing process to roll up my sleeves and know that I had something to do, I don't even think there was a phase. It was just this is what you want. This is what I'm going to do. Now along the way, and here was the challenge for me probably personally is I know every time that I do something, I get out there and I speak and my dad might be in the audience and I tell that story. Well, guess what? My dad has to relive that story. So that part I'm keenly aware of, and other family members as well.
And you said your dad wears his heart on his sleeve,
And
so
he
you're
does.
the compartmentalizer, and you're the I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So but your dad.
He's a trooper. He's been great about this whole thing. But point being is I realize every time I tell a story that not everybody is able to compartmentalize like I do. So I'm aware of that. Doesn't stop me from doing it, but I do try to read the audience and understand what level of detail I can get into to do that. But I like back to your question. I just knew it was something that my brother wanted, and I had the capacity to do it.
I think it happens a lot too, and not just. Yeah, I mean, you had the directive in the letter from your brother, but so many lose people, and they want to do something and make a difference, and so there's all kinds of smaller organizations and stuff that start, and running a nonprofit is hard. And
Yes, it is.
as
Yeah,
we
it
all
is.
around this table
Yeah, it is.
know. And so, I mean, one of the ways that you could still get involved is not to necessarily go start your own, but there's plenty of them that exist. Find something in your area and get involved with them. And you can still, further their mission, further your mission, help your healing, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously this is not a competitive environment. I don't remember exactly when we met. We've known each other a few years. Your organization, my organization, we've done a lot of things together, and I've done. My organization's partnered up with other nonprofits as well to do some things. And I think we have our own strengths. We know what our own sweet spots are, and a lot of times those complement each other. And so, to your point, if somebody wants to start up a nonprofit because that's what they were asked to do or that's what their desire is, I'd love to help them do that. And we've all gone through the pain to get things started. We kind of know what to do.
Well, when you're going through an organization and you want to work with folks, we talked a little bit about the corporate world, but what about schools, communities, and other places, places of worship, any other places where you need help spreading awareness about suicide prevention? What kind of work do you all do in those different spots, and how is it different? So just doing something like this in a school would be different than doing something in the community or maybe at the city level. So how do you all work within those different places?
Yeah, and we've actually worked with I think all the different kinds of types of organizations that you just mentioned. So I did talk a little bit about the corporate world, and that's probably the one area that we haven't really delved into very much from a program perspective. Getting in there and talking to employees. But when it comes to the others, we do. When I say we, so locally the 10th man has a pretty good recognition. So that's how a lot of people come to us is through the 10th man, but also through AFSP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which is the largest grassroots organization in the U.S. I think in the world, focused on suicide prevention. But through those two organizations a lot of times will come to us. So schools, for example, they will maybe contact AFSP and say, hey, we would like somebody to come and address the student body. And usually when that happens, it's because something happened at the school. A student died from suicide, maybe a faculty member, et cetera. And so there's a specific program called It's Real and Teens and Mental Health, and there's a couple other versions of it. But the one that I've done is gone into high schools, generally addressing ninth through 12th graders, and I do this program, and it's maybe I guess I would call it maybe a less intense version of the Talk Saves Lives program, which I mentioned a little bit ago. But the main purpose is for the kids to understand, the students to understand that you know what are some of the signs to look for when they think their friend is struggling, when they're struggling. To go seek the trusted adult, and we kind of talk about who that might be. It might not be your parent, it might be a teacher, it might be a counselor, things like that. And then we do show that the Seize the Awkward videos as well. So schools have been actually probably the type of organization that we've made the most inroads to. Now I think the unfortunate side of that is because one of the fastest growing demographics for suicide is the youth, the youth and teens.
Yeah.
And so that's the downside of it. But I'm glad that the schools have taken it upon themselves to come forward and say, hey, yeah, we need some help so that the either these things don't happen again, or to prevent them from happening in the first place. And then the other organizations are some government organizations. Again, I talked a little bit about law enforcement. We've had some opportunities to stand in front of not just the Illinois State Police, but some other law enforcement. The supervisors of St. Clair County did a session where they wanted me to come in and do Talk Saves Lives. And then there's some other governmental I guess task force, for lack of a better term. So it's a representative, maybe from law enforcement, from EMS, from the schools, different groups, both in Monroe as well as St. Clair County, that have brought us in to help them understand what programs are available, and then what's the right fit for again, is it law enforcement, is it the schools, et cetera. And so I'm pretty excited that come 2026 we're going to be able to do quite a few programs in both those counties. And again, we're not county specific, but it just happens to be those two counties that are seeking some resources from again, either 10th Man or AFSP to come in and do those kinds of programs.
So do you think that that's now more proactive instead of reactive? That they're reaching out to you to minimize it, and instead of hey, this is how you deal with it post event, something that actually happened?
Absolutely. Now, I still don't think it's probably as proactive as we would like, but it's certainly more proactive than it used to be. Again, it goes back to the stigma. I think a lot of organizations, or I say organizations broadly, maybe didn't want to address it. But now, when whether it's within their own community, again, whether that's a school or larger community, when something happens, or if they just know that something happened in a neighboring community, it suddenly it's a bit shocking. And so yes, they have been much more proactive coming forward. But at the same time, we're promoting it as well. So we're out there saying to different organizations, whether it's through social media or other ways of contacting them, saying hey, if you have an interest, if you have a concern, we have these programs that we can come in and do. So it does still go both ways, but them being proactive is really nice to see compared to what it was a few years ago.
That's very refreshing too, because we know how important the role of, peer support is. And when you have folks that have that lived experience and those advocates, and I really like, we've been through the Talk Save Lives training. So you have folks who've gone through things, but they also need that training to know how to communicate effectively to others. And when we've had some of our past guests, our psychologists and our therapists on, that have talked about, making sure, you're in the right place so that you can then spread the word to someone else. But the peer-to-peer is so important. So I really love that you guys do that. And that training, I can tell you, Talk Saves Live training, it's great. It was great training to go through. Opened my eyes about a lot of things.
Well, yeah, I did it, right?
You did. You did.
No, that's good to hear. And to one of your points there is, at some point when someone's again, whether they're suffering from depression, anxiety, et cetera, they need professional help. There's no doubt about it. And I encourage people to help. To find that, and again, that's one of our missions from the 10th Man perspective is we can help people find those resources, but also then if there's a gap in their ability to fund, we can fund that. But where I'm going with that is the initial conversation. I think the most effective initial conversation is that peer to peer. So for somebody to actually come forward and say, "Hey, I need help," it's usually they're reaching out to a friend, a family member, someone along those lines, versus just going straight to counseling. Now, obviously that happens as well, but that peer to peer conversation is so important, which is why all these different programs, and it doesn't even have to be the formal program. Anybody who might be listening, just get online and try to understand what are the signs of depression, and just increase your own knowledge about those signs, and you'll be prepared to have that conversation if it happens.
Right.
We have them listed on the
There
That's
glow4hopenfp.org
right.
on the resources page. So take a visit there.
Well, Chris, what do you have coming up? What's anything good coming up with the 10th Man? And
Well, we just got from an AFSP perspective, we just got through our Out of the Darkness Walk for St. Clair County, which was our most successful one we've had. I think we raised about $18,000 so far.
Awesome.
There were maybe 300 plus people who attended. So that was exciting, which I know that pales in comparison to, I go up to the Chicagoland Walk every year as well, which was about a month ago. Now they raise $1 million, so
So add a couple
a
zeros
little
on
bit,
that.
a little bit more than
we'll
we.
catch them. We'll
And
catch
there's
them.
6,000 attendees there, but so we just got through those. Our next big event we do from the 10th Man perspective is we'll do some holiday, maybe some holiday gifts and things like that. But our next big event is not until next May. We do a Derby Day event every year. It's actually one of my personal friends, and he's a board member for the 10th Man, Dave Sink and Sharon Nickrent. They used to have a personal party, Derby party, and when they joined the 10th Man, they wanted to say to give back. So they allowed us to turn it into a 10th Man event and fundraiser. So it'll be Derby Day of 2026, which I don't know the exact date. It's always that first Saturday.
First Saturday in May.
Yep,
Right.
yep. So you don't have to know the exact date. Just know.
Our husband.
There you go. There you go. It's just a great event where it's a happy event. So again, I get up there. I've got a little bit of a program, but we bring people in. We raise great money. A lot of it focuses on the world that my brother used to come from. So a lot of it's the legal community in St. Clair County who really helps support that.
You had some big ticket items this last
We
year.
did, yeah. So we have a silent auction as well, with some great prize, some big trips and things like that. That was a big success, and we have some great music. There's a live band we have there. Great food. Now we've moved venues a couple times, but Cured and Culture on the west end of Belleville is where we had it last year, and that's where we plan on having it again this year. And they just do a fantastic job for us as well. So again, it's a lot of it is yes, it is to raise funds, and those funds go specifically to I mentioned a little bit ago where if someone is struggling to pay for at least a portion of their own counseling. Maybe sometimes they've got a deductible they can't afford, things like that. That's where the 10th Man can come in and help with that funding. So that's the important part of it. But the rest of it is it's a good day. We do raise a lot of awareness. There are people who again maybe who knew John, didn't know the story, and said, "Oh my gosh, I know somebody else who might be struggling as well." So there's all kinds of different good things that come out of the day.
So you come on out in your big hats and your mint
do.
juleps and raise some money for a great cause. I
Absolutely.
love it.
Yep. You'll see me there all decked out every year. So
I love it.
I stopped by the year before
Yeah.
last, I guess, and it's a real Derby party. And I've
absolutely.
been to the Derby, so I know.
Same. Okay. You might see me in May.
All right, you're both.
I love a
invited.
big hat.
Absolutely, come on.
Well, I'm gonna go off of our list of questions here for just a minute, and because so much of what we talked about and training wise and the awareness and have going and doing these talks and everything is to older groups. There's a big need in my mind that we need to start at a younger age with not necessarily the suicide prevention and using the word suicide because I'm for a lot of different reasons there, but how young can we get them, and what difference can we make, and what is missing in that area that is a gap we could fill?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, and I'm not sure I've got the great answer for it, other than what we do know is so. If you look at it's still to this day, the largest demographic of suicide in the U.S. is the what I would call what's me. It's the older white male. Um, but when you look at the fastest the growing trends in demographics, it's that not even just teens. It's youth into teens and young black men are some of the two fastest growing, as well as the LGBTQ plus community as well. But when you look at that youth community, for lack of a better term, yeah, it's a great question. How early do you start? Unfortunately, I mean, it's tragic. We're seeing suicides as low as before 10 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know anything
Heartbreaking.
before I was 10 years old, and so yeah, what's the right time and what's the right venue and avenue to start to have that conversation? I think it's a great one to open up to a broader group. It should be a group of parents, representatives from schools and other organizations as well to figure that out together. We can go in and we can do a presentation. We do have some modified versions of some of these programs, but I think you have to have somebody who's really well trained
Yeah.
to address these topics with that age group.
Yeah, finding that appropriate language for that age group. But I would add to the list of folks, like you were saying, the influencers. These kids are on social media and on their tablets and are on things so much more than we were. They see so much more than we did at that age. And having something in the social media sphere, which I know that folks have been getting from the federal standpoint, have been getting on these social media companies to kind of step up on some of this, because there are things out there that they're seeing that they shouldn't be seeing, and if they could just change that for good and put more of those words out there, like with those influencers. Yeah, 10 years old. I mean, I can't even imagine. My grandson just turned 9, and I know that there are some that age through bullying or what have you that have taken their own lives. And so where did they even get the thought?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, at 10 years old, I mean, I was still playing in the dirt. I can't imagine it. Can't put myself in that situation. And you hit on a great point though about the influencers. So you think about it. I mean, probably less than 5 years ago, you didn't see any commercials about suicide and depression and things like that. During sport, a football game or baseball game or something, a basketball game. And now you see an ad or multiple ads almost every game that I'm watching, and it doesn't have to be sports, but that's the one that kind of resonates. And so to your point, I think again, they should continue to do that. They're helping chip away at that stigma. If there's a 9-year-old who's glued to the TV watching a football game and he sees that ad, I would hope that individual might, if they've got a question, go ask their mom and dad. And then of course that's the important part, is the mom and dad need to not stumble across the answer. Of course they might be very surprised, like, oh my gosh, they're asking about this, but having just some simple talking points as a parent or other trusted adult, I think is really important.
That's what we were thinking with our parents' guide, and why we were developing our parents' guide.
Yes, it's still in process, but it's really honing in a lot further. But but part of that is also, and one of the things that we came to realize when we are talking about that younger age group is it's not about putting suicide prevention out there and using the term suicide. It's teaching them the right coping skills and the mental wellness and toughness and readiness, whatever you want to put after mental, and so that it indirectly, results in kids being happier and being kinder to each other, and then they don't have those thoughts.
Yeah, that
later on.
emotional regulation. One of the things that we did, like last year when we did our trunk or treat, we had the pamphlet that helped them regulate their breathing,
Mhm.
and they
We
were
handed that out last week.
so popular among the kids and the parents. I was so surprised by how many parents, once I kind of explained what it was, oh yeah, she needs that, and you know what, we need it too. So yeah, it was,
We just gave out about 200 of those last weekend at a trunk or treat.
yeah. So that's just the part of it. Just, and you just explained it the way I would explain is, when you have you have a scary thought, or, sometimes your heart starts racing really fast, and, a little girl was like, yeah, yeah. I said, well, this is what you do, and you use your hand, and do you want to try it? And then she tried it. She said, oh, I like this. I said, yeah, you can even color it. And then she just went on her merry way, and she's like grabbed her candy and went on her merry way. And I was just like, wow. And her mom said, thank you so much.
Yeah. No, that's great. And at the risk of oversimplifying, and again, I don't mean to, but yeah, I think a child knows if they don't feel right,
Right.
if it's sadness or something else, and then what do they do when they feel that way, and so just that path forward to ask for some sort of assistance, or somebody recognizing that situation existing, and being proactive to say exactly the situation you said. I think that's probably maybe what's missing a little too much right now.
Yeah.
Well,
Agreed.
hopefully we can kick some things into gear
That's
here.
right.
and
That's
fill
why we're
that
here.
gap. Well, anything else that you want to make sure that everybody knows, or that you want them to hear?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a great, thorough conversation. I think we talked through a lot of things that I usually talk about, and a few things I don't always talk about. So I appreciate you bringing those out. I just always appreciate the opportunity. Again, our organizations have done a lot of work together. We do a lot of events together. It's always it's meaningful work, but it's fun as well. And I guess that's what some of my parting words is. When we talk about things like the Out of the Darkness walk and these other things, the intent is there's a positive connotation to this. It's a tough topic. It's a deep topic. It's an important topic, and the idea is let's have an open conversation so that people don't go down that that path toward that that moment of crisis, and we show them that there's other alternatives. There's another path to go, and if we can help people find that path, and then that's we've done something pretty good. So,
Amen to that.
Great way to wrap it up here. And once again, they can find out more about the 10th Man at the10thman.org.
Yep, and that's all spelled out. It's all the word, the10thman.org. Yep.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being our guest and going through all of our challenges.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Chris.
No,
You're the best.
This is great. I wish you nothing but great success in having more of these as well. So, yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks again.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Delisa.
Thank you.
Until next time, keep shining. Thank you for joining us on Glow for Hope. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, your mental wellness matters, and you are never alone. For more resources and support, visit glowforhopenfp.org. That's glowforhopenfp.org. Stay connected, stay hopeful, and keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep shining.
This podcast does not and is not intended to provide medical advice. The information presented on this podcast should not be interpreted or construed in any way as a replacement or substitution for medical advice. It is important that you discuss your condition, treatment options, or any questions that you may have with your doctor or healthcare provider.